Hello, everybody, and welcome to the CampHacker podcast. I'm Travis Allison. I blog about running a great summer camp at CampHacker.tv.
Hi, my name is Dan Weir. I'm the Director of Camping Services at Frost Valley YMCA. Frost Valley is a year-round camp conference education facility in the Catskill Mountains.
Hi, my name is Gabrielle Rail, and I'm one of the directors of Camp Ouareau. Camp Ouareau is an all-girls camp situated in the Laurentians in Quebec.
And my name's Joe Richards. I'm the Executive Director of Pierce Williams Christian Center, which is the Church of Canada summer camp retreat facility located about halfway between Detroit and Toronto.
Welcome back, everybody. It's great to see you. Lots of things have happened since the last we spoke. Obviously, camp happened, but this is the first time we can all say in person, Dan, congratulations on baby Ruby.
Thank you. Yeah, she's adorable. 4.5 months. So
yeah,
I'm finally starting to let me sleep.
Yes, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Dan, how was camp for you this year?
It was great. I was really happy that about the experience that the kids walked away with. Definitely, personally, for working and having a child, definitely changed the dynamic of work for me in that sense. But overall, very happy with the camp experience that kids walked away from here.
Nice. That's great. And Gab, how was summer at Ouareau?
We had a really good summer. We reformatted our staff training, and we saw a positive difference in how the staff were working towards a more specific common goal. Yeah. So really happy with our summer.
That's awesome. What did you do different with staff training?
We had a specific training for staff members that weren't on leadership team, but that were veteran staff, meaning that they had experienced at least 2 staff trainings before, and we brought them a little bit more behind the scenes, and we're a little bit more transparent with our organization, and showed them the work that we do throughout the year and the changes that we were going to make this summer and why we were making them, and asked them about changes that they thought would be helpful and what they needed to do during staff training to help our returning staff members that are younger and our new staff members, and to look at the staff training as not a learning time, but an instruction time. So just changed their mentality, and it was very powerful, and it worked out really well.
That's awesome. Joe, how did things end up at Pierce?
Things ended up awesome at Pierce. We had one of our best summers yet. The campers were amazing. The staff were amazing. Although it is the first year I had to fire a couple of staff, and
you had to fire staff before camp even started, right?
But that's just I was getting out of practice, so I felt I needed to do that. And I fired some literally a week into spring staff.
Right.
And just but camp itself was great. We our summer director is amazing, and I just had a really great summer.
No, that's awesome. Right on. Well, honestly, it's great to have the 3 of you back here. I'm glad to be talking CampHacker stuff. It's been nice to get to talk to each of you individually recently, but I'm glad we're here for the big show, as I'm taking to calling it. Over top of my camera, I can see the whiteboards in the back of the office, and there's lots of really big things coming that I'm really excited about. So from the 4 of us to all of you who are watching and listening, thank you. One small note, if you happen to listen to this on the website at camphacker.tv/podcast, I hope that you'll go to iTunes and subscribe in there, or if you use some other podcatcher on your phone, subscribe to the podcast. We've had to change the feeds, and although it's technically possible to change the feeds and not lose anybody, for some small glitchy reason, it wasn't possible for us. We lost all of our subscribers. So if you're listening on the site, you can listen to this on your phone or your MP3 player. Take us with you in the car, or take us on a run, etc. But you just use whatever podcaster and search for CampHacker. So I appreciate everybody taking the time to do that. And I'll talk about more about iTunes as we close things out, but I want to get us on to what we're here for. And that's to talk about recruiting great summer camp staff. And I have a unique perspective on that because I'm not actively recruiting staff. I'm just watching camps doing it and thinking, oh, I think I could do that better, or I have a great idea. So what I want to do is start with you guys and see what's working for you and what you're going to try this year. And Joe, I want to start with you. What works best for you for recruiting new staff? And by new staff, I mean not necessarily those who've been through camp and grow up there and wear LITs and then just keep going, but ones who weren't necessarily as connected to you for camp, or maybe been away for a while.
Yeah, I think what works best for us as a camp to recruit new staff is right now is friends of friends. It's one of those things where we have such a high return rate of staff who come from within. So they were either an LIT or a CIT with us, or they're returning staff members. And we really put a lot of trust on those people to bring the right people into our system. The culture is all important. So getting those staff to be part of the culture right away is key. And who knows better than that, how to get people to do that than our current staff. It's one of those things where I haven't had to over the past few years go out and do like an active recruiting that is not of some known quantity of people. So it's an interesting dynamic that we're at right now. I also find that recruiting new staff is a lot based on what you're selling. So if you sell it as a fun summer job, then people are more than likely to come for the wrong reasons. Whereas if you sell it as the world's hardest job, but you're going to love it, you get a different breed of people. And also whether you're looking early or late, right? The earlier you're looking for summer staff, you're actually going to get better staff because those are the people who want something to do and need something to do. So it's an interesting dynamic that way.
Oh, that's awesome. Are you going to try anything different this year?
I'm not sure. Well, the one thing I'm going to try is not recruiting staff myself. We've recently hired a full-time summer camp director. So Jessica, who's our summer camp director, will be the one who's actually recruiting the staff this year. And so it's just offering my expertise and letting her go about it.
Yeah, right on. That's great. Gab, what works at Ouareau?
I think what Joe was talking about is sort of what you're selling, and for us specifically, the fact that we have a language program where half our kids are French and the other half are English. We work 2 days in English, 2 days in French, draws a lot of people that are interested in working on their second or third language. So already that draws in a lot of people. But we basically, as much as possible with people that are new to Ouareau, try not to sell the camp once they apply for the job. We do sort of a three-part interview system. Mm-hmm. And in the first part, it's very, very much like we're in the middle of nowhere. We have internet, but it doesn't usually work. There's a lot of bugs. There's very little sleep. As much as possible, we're not trying to scare them away, but we're trying to be honest. And then that helps with with getting quality staff, because if they're going through that part and they're like, no, I still want to do this, it seems amazing, then we're on the right track. But how we recruit people, it is word of mouth from our other staff members, as well as we look at certain programs, language programs and universities, and we advertise there.
Right. And those language programs, they're not really local universities, are they?
No, they're all around, and they're in specific little places, and but we search them online. We always talk to the people at the universities or at the schools from the programs. That's key, and then we try to get references from that school if they are applying from that school. So, but no, they're from everywhere. I think camp's an experience. It's an adventure, and you want your staff to have the same feeling when they come from afar. Sometimes there's a little added excitement.
Yeah, right on. That's great. What's been working in the past for you guys, Dan?
We do a really great job of talk about like breeding our own staff in the sense of growing them up from our CIT program. So we have kids that are coming to camp at the age of 8, 9, and 10 that are looking forward to becoming a staff member one day.
Yeah.
So we really try to kind of have this progression of going to it. So our CIT program actually had 72 kids go through it this past year, and about half of those will become staff. And then the rest of the positions are pretty much a combination of returning staff members that have been working the past several years, have been campers. And then we have a small group of staff that are new, so about 25% for us. And we'll get those from a variety of friends referring friends so that the expectations are really clear. Or we'll use a service like Three Adventures or Camp Leaders for staffing as well. But for us, I think that we really hire based on personality. And I agreeing exactly what Joe and Gab are saying about almost doing the opposite of selling the place and really kind of illustrating how we're in the middle of nowhere, and it's a great experience. But at the same point in time, it's an amazing amount of work, and you definitely have to be prepared to be with kids. If you don't like kids, don't bother coming. Yeah. And really use some strong language to kind of deter people that would just want this to be a great summer for them, rather than having an impact on a child's life. So after we do all that, we really kind of narrow it down, and we find people that really meet the mold. And then, of course, there's always the person that drops out in May and causes us to freak out for an afternoon. And then, we talk to a few people and we get a good lead, and we go from there. But we're really happy with how that works. And the times that we're truly in a pinch, we'll use campstaff.com, and you can pay for an ad that will go out to its entire listserv. And it tends to open to floodgates, but when it's May and you're looking for a driver or someone with a specific skill set, you will generally get a few applicants that way. Yeah, other than that, we start application process right away. We're actually, the big change for us this year is we're switching to CampMinder. So we, for a while, I've been just using Google Drive and using the forms for a staff application there, as well as references. And with the amount of applicants that we see, it was mind-numbing, and we end up losing applicants at times. And well, not losing, but there'll be a month delay before someone really got back to them and had a really good conversation. So with switching to CampMinder, I'm in love with how their system is set up, and basically we're going to be using it for not only our CIT and volunteer, but also jobs. So anyone that's really wanting to spend time here at Frost Valley in a volunteer or staff role will be going through CampMinder. Yeah.
So we'll maybe have to come back to CampMinder, because if anybody's been through the trials and tribulations of Camp Database, it's been you, Dan.
Yes. Yeah. No. Well, actually, we're just using CampMinder for
staffing.
The staffing.
Gotcha.
Well, so they were able to work that out for us, and
nice.
I'm very happy with it. So
great. That's awesome. So there's a couple common themes. It's interesting to me that the undersell is a big part for all three of you. And there's a name for that. The particular sales technique of making sure, one, of trying to push people away so that you know that you get the right people, because they're the ones who actually were really fighting to be involved. But also, I think that being honest about what camp is like gets you, as all of you have said, more of the right people. And the other thing is, if there are kids who haven't, for one reason or other, haven't done the CIT-LAT program, and come back and apply, and you think, oh, he was such a great camper, I'm always conscious about that, because such a great camper does not equal such a great staff person. Sometimes it does. And some of them, from their resumes, that and seeing what they are doing while they're away from camp, like I've had ones who were, like modeling overseas and just doing really neat adventure stuff, versus kids who just stayed at home and cut grass for a year instead of coming to camp. And I think it's important to have a great conversation with them about that. Are there any things that you want to try new this year, Dan?
We constantly talk about the application process. So we're really excited to have automatic references. We require references, three new references on every employee, whether I've known them since they were 8 or they're brand new. So that is a huge source of time for us. So one of the reasons we switched to this new system was because the references go out automatically. People could log into their account and check and see how many references they have done. So it's going to allow for us to really do some group messaging and kind of micromanage that on a different level. That will be a huge time saver for us. We always revamp our interview questions and want our interview questions to be portraying our campus well too. So really diving deep. Like for instance, there's an activity we do in our traditional resident camp every night called Devotion, where we ask. Sometimes it's sharing a story. Sometimes it's asking what was the highlight of their day. Sometimes it's talking about their values. But we actually, for this past season, we used it as an interview question. So what's the topic that you would share with 8 to 9-year-olds? You said you were interested in working with 8 to 9-year-olds. What's the topic that you would discuss with them? And so we really tried to provide some scenario questions to kind of get a little bit more in-depth answers from people. And that's kind of the current trend we're on. But every year we try to switch up the interview questions, if nothing else, just for all the staff that we have reapplying, and we want them to feel like they're getting a different interview.
Yeah.
In that sense.
Yeah. Good on. How about you, Gab? Is there anything new that you're going to try?
Well, one of our staff members has that does most of our staff recruiting has moved on to another job. So we've hired somebody to take over her position. So I think it's not going to be so much what we're going to be doing differently, but it's going to be how this new person, how I train this person, and how we're going to share some of the tasks so that we can keep the continuity and the quality that we had last year. Because we're fairly happy with how we do our process in interviewing. The one thing that we're shifting slightly is training a couple of other staff members on doing the basic interview part. And so instead of having less Skype meetings, having more face-to-face. So in Toronto, out west, in the States, we're training a couple of people to do that basic first interview.
Right. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Joe, if you had a different situation, if you weren't at Pierce with such a built-in system, is there something that you would try at a different camp?
Yeah, I guess what I would try would be, a lot of the same things I used to do. When I was at the Taylor camps and you're you're trying to hire 240 people every summer, it becomes a question of just getting to the people and really seeing those people. So it's I'd probably revert back to a lot of job fairs and actual on campus stuff for the people I'm recruiting, and might very well now use online services like Dan mentioned, because those would save a lot of time of doing the initial vetting, because a lot of those you have to apply for and post resume and whatnot. So I think a lot of those things would come in handy if it was a different situation. Being a situation where you're only, where essentially our staff have to live fairly close to where we are, because every Friday they go home and every Sunday they come back, right? So taking staff from a distance always becomes this, well, where are you going to stay this weekend? Because camp doesn't run on Saturday and Sunday morning, so our staff need to find somewhere to be, because we rent the facility out on weekends. So it's an interesting way to spend. It's quick turnovers and changes, but getting people locally is key to the success.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about. I'm trying to come at this from a different angle. So I'm thinking about people who are new to you. Do you find the questions that they ask, and I know that, Gab, this is a big part of your process, is really taking the time to discover who that person is. Do you find that there are questions that they ask you that reveal something about how Ouareau is perceived?
Yes, in a way. I mean, one of the things that in our second interview, we say that we want them to come up with 5 questions to ask us, and that's in part to give them the chance to show their interest, because a lot of the times they are interested, but they just get anxious. And it's a good way of telling their interest in the organization. And it also shows us if they've read any of the information that we provide, because we have a really nice, detailed package that we give them.
Yeah.
So, like, read this information, and if they're asking very simple questions that are right in that information, then we also know that they're not looking at the stuff that we've already given them to look at. At the same time, it helps us build more information for other staff members for years to come. If we see certain questions coming up, or we're like, wow, that's a genius question, we should put that in our information packet.
Yeah.
So for the most part, the questions that they ask tell us if they're interested in the position, if they're interested in our organization, and also their value system, and does it match our value system.
Right. Cool. Also, I was just wondering if that would reveal, obviously you've put a lot of thought into this with the package, which I'd love to see sometime, and wonder if you guys would mind sharing.
Sure.
So you can let me know later if you're comfortable sharing that. But
Yeah.
I think that'd be really helpful to camps to see that as a trigger. But I just wondered if those 5 questions from the camper, or from those potential staff members, reveals anything about what you need to include in the package for next year.
I mean, it does. It reveals certain things. It also reveals, sometimes staff members ask about money, and sometimes, and that's fine. That's very fine. Like,
Yep.
it's important to know these questions. And sometimes they ask questions that are very much about them and their experience. I'm always interested in people that are asking questions about the campers. You know, what happens if a camper does this, or what happens when there's an issue here? That shows me that they're caring a little bit towards, towards our clients.
Yeah.
But if they're like, well, what time do we get off? How long do I have for this? What if, I'm sick? And then that sends, I'm not basing everything on it, but it sort of has a nice sign that, okay, I see where your head is at, which is also normal for a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old. But that might not be the type of person that we want to hire. And at the same time, it shows us where our blind spots are. Because like a lot of us, we've been at our organization for a long time. We know it, and we don't know what it's like to come in, or it's hard to remember what it's like to come in new.
Yeah.
So what are our blind spots? And sometimes there's certain questions that are asked that I'm like, right, why would you know this? This is so alien. So
Yeah.
we should clarify this.
Yeah.
And camp vocabulary we try to use as little of as
Yes.
possible.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
Go down.
I think one of the things you bring up too with hearing the questions that they're bringing up. There's a number of staff or a number of camps that don't interview their international staff, that just look at the CV, look at the references, like, oh, they have the skills I need. And I often find out during the international interviews that I have that from the questions they're asking, where their priorities are, far more than the questions that I'm asking them.
Right.
If they keep re-emphasizing, so how far away are you from New York City, and those little things, that's it's clear that their priority is just getting to the U.S. and I think it's an important thing to really recognize when picking up on from staff as well. But we were all 18 once and said some pretty idiotic things, and they do happen during interviews. And I've definitely had conversations with people years later and be like, yeah, I said that during an interview. Why'd you hire me? I'm like, look, that was just one thing you said. The rest of the stuff you said was great, and I really trusted you, and I believed in you in that sense. But you were an idiot for saying that. And I think it's important to remember that this is often their first interview.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't think that, and I also think, Dan, with people, it's great to hire people that are international or that they're coming from afar. But I think now with Skype and Google Talk, and that there really isn't any excuse but to meet the
Yes.
person. And it's not just for your own sake; it's for their sake as well. It's their transition in will be a lot easier if they meet you, if you can talk to them. It shows them that you care. But I don't. We don't hire anybody anymore unless we speak to them face to face, even if it's online. And I'll if it has to be at 12 o'clock at night is the only time that I can chat with them, I'll do it because it's important. So I think of course I try not to do that. It's a horrible idea, but if it had to be that, then I would always use Skype.
No, that's one of the things is meeting people is key. Finding amazing staff and recruiting amazing staff, you can't do via paper, and it was very hard in the early 2000s doing it just via telephone because you simply can't see the person. And I know that there are lots of camp directors who in that day and age would literally do all of their trips, and you had to have a face-to-face interview, and that's one of the things that I've made mandatory here is if a new person, and this is the thing, if a new person lives 45 minutes away from us and isn't willing to make the drive to camp for an interview, then I'm not really willing to look at them as a staff member, because if you're not willing to commit to that little bit of extra travel to get a job, then so be it. That's fine. That's your choice, and I get that. But I'm not going to waste my time. They're like, well, can we do it over the phone? And I'm like, no, because finding amazing staff, I found this year there was a question I started asking, and it was all on a thread. I think it might have been on the Camp Pro site, or it might have been on the Directors Camp page, but it was a thread about the inquiry interview. Anybody can help me out if you. So the concept is, right, that what is a moment or something that you're truly proud of, a project or something you're truly proud of. The rest of the interview just based around that question and the responses to that question, because it really lets you see what they're like beyond any question I can ask. I always ask, what's the latest book you read? That's more so for me to, A, are they a reader, but B, I need a good reading list as I move forward in life. So you can only put Harry Potter on that reading list so many times. And so it becomes this inquiry interview where you have to start playing by ear, because there's no set questions, but to ask what they're proud of, then you can go down. There's a list of questions you go through, and it can lead and seem like a very innocent conversation to them. But if they're truly proud of something that they've done, it will make all the difference to you. And I think maybe Gary Forrester there was another article about that, and the question was, well, what if they're not proud of anything? Then you don't want that person on your staff, right? Like you don't want that person to be one of your staff team.
What does it tell you if they're not proud of anything, Joe?
Well, it tells you that they don't have the life experience yet to really be a contributing member to your team. They don't know what it means to be a team, right? Like they don't know what that feeling is. And so what it tells me as a camp director is maybe they're not ready for this step. Maybe they're better somewhere else. It's not something that I'm gonna take my chances on.
Yeah, or maybe they don't know how to articulate it, and then you could translate that into, like, do they have the social skills to pick up on when working with children? I mean, that's a huge thing in taking care of somebody on a 24-hour basis. They have to be able to pick up on those little parts of language that is an innate skill that we can't teach them in a week and a half or 3 weeks of staff training. So. Yeah.
Well, and you said that, Dan, and it brings up a point, something that happened to me this summer. We spent a week training, our 2 weekend trainings and our 1 week long training, and then on the Saturday, so staff went home at 5 o'clock on Friday night, and camp started Sunday at 2. And Saturday afternoon at 2, we get an email from one of our new male staff, had never done any programming with us, and but he'd been at all of our trainings, and we weren't, we hadn't put a judgment in on him, but his response to us on what Saturday was, I don't feel like I'm socially ready to do this. Mm-hmm. I cannot be, I just don't think I can be in charge of these kids. And and every day for 24 hours, and so I need to resign. And at the time, it's one of those things where you're like, camp starts tomorrow, but in the long run, it's okay. That's a mature choice, and that person made a mature choice, and that's great. And it so happened that I'd hired other male staff and hadn't given him any weeks because he was hired really late because he has his lifeguarding. And so I just literally slotted him into all of the open spots, and it worked out just fine. And it was good. But to have someone make that choice actually shows a lot of maturity, even if they don't have the social skills to be a camp counselor.
Yeah. Dan, were you going to jump in there with something?
No, I was just remembering that we had a family that forgot to pick up their daughter, and then when we contacted them, they said they weren't emotionally ready yet to come pick her up.
What? Stop it!
We caught them off. We caught them off guard. So when you said you were I was like, oh.
Yeah, hilarious.
Maybe they weren't decent, but whatever.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's another thing that I'd love to have a private discussion or have people. I've often talked about the private fraternity of camp directors.
Yeah, I'll stop there with it.
Yeah.
One thing would be things that I can't believe that parents have said to me.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. It'd be a great hashtag.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would.
There's a site for graphic designers that's called Clients from Heck.
Yeah.
2 L's at the end, and it's pretty funny, but it's pretty bang on, like all of the things. So I was wondering when that would pop up for teachers. I know teachers have some really interesting stories and camp directors.
Yeah.
But anyways.
Yeah. There you go.
Emotionally ready.
There you go. Well, great, guys. Does anybody have anything else you want to add or a thought that's come up before I move us on?
I think the
not in our public show.
Oh, yes. No. I think the biggest thing is just not settling. I think there is plenty of people out there that want to work with children, and that will meet your criteria, and that you shouldn't settle. And my first few years hiring, I settled, and I still hear about it to this day, 7 years later. I just had an alumni weekend event, and they're like, "Oh yeah, who hired that guy?" I'm like, "I did." And I think you really should think about the impact that they're going to have on, even if they're just a cabinet and counselor for 8 kids for us, it'd be four sessions. So that's 32 kids they'd be impacting permanently. Yeah. And if you think about it that way, when you're hiring, it's just you don't settle. I think that's my biggest thing that I've learned over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Awesome.
And go after people, staff members that might have worked for you a couple of years back, and you don't know what they're doing that summer, and you might have a great position that you have in mind just for them, and call them and go after them and tell them why you want them.
Right.
It's not. That's nice to hear, and sometimes you hit, a really great working relationship that way. And I certainly have. Almost every year we have somebody that wasn't thinking of coming back, but we made that call, and it just worked out so well.
No, that's smart. That's really smart. And I think being able to easily articulate what the value of your camp is, what you have to offer as a staff person, is essential to staff these days because they have so many choices. The other thing I was going to add to the discussion, it's not, as I say, I'm not recruiting staff in person, but I'm watching people do it every day. And I think that there's lots of ways other than paying to advertise in the paper certainly wouldn't bring you very good people, but there are specific camp recruiting websites. But also I think it says a lot to parents if you were to put together some sort of video that talks about the benefit of working at camp. so that new camp would understand, new staff would understand what that means. And that's publicly available, I think, is important because that helps parents understand how you feel about what this job means, and how the amount of intentionality you're putting into hiring. So video is just something I gravitate to, but you could write it as well. But being able to articulate not just what kids are going to get out of summer camp, but what the staff will get out of it says a lot to both potential staff members and to potential parents as well. Good. Well, thank you all very much for a great discussion. And if others are listening and want to let us know any recruiting ideas that they have or questions for the CampHackers, then please send an email to me, travis@socialcatalyst.ca, and we'll try to get your questions on a future show. I'd like to, again, at Christmas time or in the holidays, do an Ask Me Anything and try to get a bunch of panelists on and answer a bunch of questions. So we'll start gathering those at this point. You can send them to me at Twitter or at CampHacker, or you could send it into travis@socialcatalyst.ca. At this point, we're going to move to our tool of the week. For those of you who are watching for the first time, I know there'll be a number of you watching for the first time, a tool of the week is something that each panelist brings to the show that has helped them be a better camp director. And you'll see from our wide variety of tools today that we like to be as creative as possible and think about all elements of life as a camp director. So I'm going to start us off. I don't very often do that, but I'll do it just since the beginning of the season. The first one, my first tool of the week for this fall, is an app for iPhone and iPad called Read Quick. And I've talked about listening quick in different podcasts before, how I listen to books and to podcasts at more than normal speaking, so that it just goes a little quicker and you get used to it really quick. I also try to read as quick as I can. And so if there are web pages, or it has to be a web page. I wish it was PDFs, but it's not PDFs yet. But you can save a web page and read it later on your iPad. So if you see a good article but don't have time to read it right now, instead of leaving all the browser tabs open, you could save it and read it on Read Quick. And then Read Quick puts it up. And I don't have my iPad here, but it puts it on screen one word at a time. And that actually might help some people who find it hard to read if there's just one word to see. And they've sort of worked out the timing. But the cool thing is that you can scale how fast the words appear. So you sort of get used to it, and then you can push it up a little faster, a little faster, a little faster. And I'm at over 450 words a minute right now because I've gotten used to it. So I just kept slowly pushing myself faster and faster and faster. So you can read a lot of articles. The other neat thing is that it'll tell you at your current rate how long it takes you to read an article. So I think it's really neat. It's been a discovery of mine since the spring, and I've used it a lot this summer. So you can find that at readquickapp.com. Dan, what's your pick of the week?
So my pick, I had to do the thing that got me through the summer, my French press mug. So is massive, and it has a beautiful, as I can get out, press in. And so being a camp director and having a newborn, I needed to be caffeinated throughout almost the entire summer, and this allowed for me to really control how much tea I was putting in there, but you could definitely put coffee in it as well. And it actually, this is my second mug. I had a mug, a different one, same exact model actually for 6 years, and it broke midsummer, and I nearly cried. And Amazon Prime, I got another one, and people definitely. I heard from a one staff member, like, one day I want to be a camp director, so I have a giant mug like this. But definitely got me through the summer, and it was great. I mean, it's been fantastic. So.
That is perfect.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you very much, Dan. Joe, what's your tool?
My tool is a little web app. I'm not sure if it works on Windows. I'm not sure about Mac, but it is called Batch Picture Resize app, and it is the simplest thing in the world. So right now I'm moving our whole website over to a new platform, and I need to put up a lot of photos, but there's a certain size that works, so getting things web ready. And so rather than opening up some, I'm sure that I do it in another program and batch resize, but this one I've been using for years, and literally you just you add the number of pixels on the longest side to the end of the app name in its shortcut thing.
Yeah.
So if I want 1500 being the longest size, it's batch resize 1500, and then I literally drag a folder of pictures over to it, and it just burns through, switches them all to 1500, and saves the original and saves the 1500s. And then I have, so like literally, Travis, this, I was going through 2009 photos that you had done for us, Travis, at camp, and I was like, man, I'd love to have these. Oh wait, I can. And there's maybe 500 or 600 photos in the batch, and I literally dragged the folder over, and it took 3 minutes to resize it all. And all I then do is sort it by size, so that I create an album called Web Ready, and I can just upload those and use them on the website. So
nice.
Batch resize.
That's great. I was looking to see if there's any Mac equivalents, but nothing jumps out. That's great. Well, hopefully somebody can send us in, a Mac user can send us in. Go, Joe.
Yeah, it took me a while to find this one, and I think I've been using it for 10 years now. Like and you can tell command line script that happens in Windows, so it's very useful for if I don't ever want to think about resizing or open a photo editing app. I just drag it over. Done.
Nice. That's good. Thank you very much. Gab, I'm really excited to hear about your tool of the week.
My tool of the week is called Splashio, and basically Splashio animates your logo so that you can use it at the beginning of any of your promotional videos. They have about 20 templates, 6 different startup music choices, and it's approximately $50. And you basically upload your logo, and then it's animated for you. So they also have transitions and also closures and all that. But it's a good way to make your video look professional. And sometimes we struggle a little bit with that, and it's just too complicated to create it yourself. So it's a neat thing. Maybe CampHacker.tv will use it.
Yes, I love the idea, and I've been thinking about something like that. I've been looking to see if there's anything sort of templates for that for Final Cut, but maybe this is even faster and easier.
Yeah, it's just very quick and easy. And then the guy that developed it, he does a whole bunch of mini little, can't remember his name, Gillian Shadwick or something, but he does a whole bunch of videos on how to do great videos, do it yourself, that kind of stuff. So I think he saw a need for this, and he created it.
Nice. That's great. Right on. Thank you very much, you guys. I'm just looking to see if there's anything else we need to cover. Looks like we've gone through the script. Thank you very much for joining us. We do really appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments on the show, we appreciate it. Again, we hope that you'll subscribe in iTunes. Send questions to us, Travis at socialcatalyst.ca, or on Twitter at CampHacker. Also, I really want you to come and join us at the Summer Camp Professionals group on Facebook. There are now close to 2,000 people who are sharing ideas and questions and all that. There's lots of great conversation happening there every day. And it's at facebook.com/camppros. Just get an invitation. It's a private group, but you can get an invitation to join. And that's it. No, the last thing is this, with us losing our place on iTunes, we lost any reviews or, star reviews or written reviews that we had. And there were a few in there. And so if you've been a long-term listener and would mind, it'd be great if you went back to the CampHacker podcast and left us a review there. It helps a lot, especially when we're just starting out. It helps us a lot to be found in iTunes. And so we'd really appreciate that. You can find our show notes for this on camphacker.tv/podcast and the 55 previous episodes of this. And it's all available online there. At this point, I'll just take a minute and say goodbye to everybody. So, Dan, thanks very much for being on. Congratulations again on Ruby.
No, thank you. Yeah, it's been a great addition to the family.
Nice. That's great. Where can people find you online, Dan, or follow what you're doing?
So I Twitter at Dan Loves Camp. I blog occasionally, not in a while, at danlovescamp.com, as well as unplugatcamp.com. And I work at Frost Valley YMCA, which is frostvalley.org. And we're also hosting the Camping Professionals Institute this fall, which is 14 different presenters speaking on topics at a 20-person private retreat that we have. And you can find all of that on frostvalley.org as well.
Nice. And I can personally vouch for two of the speakers.
Yes.
So if you want to learn about a really cool, just debuted this summer, leadership course for teens, and you would leave with being able to run this leadership course. It's a week long. It's called Stand, designed by Beth Allison. She's going to be presenting that. And I'm presenting, so it's 2.5 days each session, and I'm presenting on a complete online marketing package for summer camps. So you would walk away with a whole plan for your, specific to your camp. But there are lots of other great people signed up there, all of whom I have seen present. I've seen about 60% of them present, and really excited about the opportunity for people to see those at the Camp Professionals Institute. Good one. Thanks, Dan. Gab, how can people find you?
Well, you can check out where I work at Ouareau.com. Follow me on Twitter at Gabrielle Rail. And yeah, you can drop me a line.
That's great. Thanks, Gab, for being on.
Yeah, no problem.
Joe?
You can follow me on Twitter at YoYoJoeR, YoYoJoeR. You can see everything I do at camp at campisbetter.com, and a new website coming out in the next week or so. And yeah, you can check out my own personal musings at yoyojoe.com.
Nice. That's great. And are you planning on keeping a travel log, Joe?
Yeah, I'm trying to set up. So the travel log, for those who don't know, I'm headed to Australia for 6 weeks starting November 2nd. I'm on 3-month sabbatical for my job. And I'm going to try and use yoyojoe.com as my location for all of my travel stuff. And it updates on Twitter, which then updates on Facebook. So I believe that's what I'm trying to set up by email, so I don't have to think about it.
That's great. That's great. So we'll look forward to seeing those. And as I said, you want show notes, you can go to camphacker.tv /podcast. Those are where all the shows are. There is also we're also on Twitter. There's lots of activity on Twitter at CampHacker. And we hope you'll join us in all these different places that we've talked about. Please subscribe to CampHacker on YouTube at youtube.com/CampHackerTV. Thanks for the evening, friends.